Brooklyn Independent Television.
A new company starts with a concept and usually a business plan. Then there's the question of space and staff. But fairly early in the process, a business may start thinking about something more abstract, its brand. How does one create a brand? What are the key steps in the process? And just how important is a company's brand? Well, try asking Toyota about that. Here to answer these questions is Peter Levinson, Principal and Creative Director for Levinson Block, which has done marketing, design, and branding for many Brooklyn organizations. Welcome, Peter.
Hi, Randy. How you doing?
So, Peter, tell us about your firm and specifically some of the Brooklyn organizations that you've worked with.
Levinson Block is a marketing and design firm. The kind of work we do is website design, brand strategy, copywriting, pretty much everything a business needs to communicate. We've been in Brooklyn about 20 years, so we were here before Brooklyn was fashionable. We've worked with organizations such as Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, which you may have heard of, Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, Metrotech Business Improvement District, and a bunch of others. So we're pretty embedded in Brooklyn.
So, Peter, tell us, what are some of the key elements to a branding process, and how does a company go about creating a success brand?
Well, first let's define a brand. A brand is not just your logo. It's your audience's gut feeling about your organization or company. So another way to define it is to look at a product like Ivory Soap. Ivory Soap, the brand is about purity. So the packaging is very simple. Their packaging is white. Their presentation of it is, all their language is about purity and simplicity. And when you actually get the soap and you open it up, it doesn't feel like sandpaper. So the brand promises purity, and then the experience of the brand delivers purity. The process of branding consists of finding out who you are, who your audience is, and who your competition is. So we ask questions. We want to find out what the emotional impression of your audience is about your organization. Then we want to talk with your people in your organization and see if it matches up. If there's a misalignment there, then that's something branding can help with. Competition is important because we want to find out what people are doing in the sector. If they're more sophisticated about their branding, then you have to be that way too. If everyone is sounding and looking the same, that's great news for your brand, because part of branding is differentiating yourself. So we want to define your difference, and that's also part of the branding process, is understanding what your environment is and ways to make yourself look, feel, and sound different. What comes out of a branding process is visual, verbal, and behavioral. Visual are things like a logo, a color palette. Verbal are the things you say about your brand, like a tagline or an elevator speech. And behavioral are the fulfillment of the brand promise. In other words, the things you're saying and doing and looking have to be part of your audience's experience of you. So a good example of something going wrong with that is airlines who do a very good job of branding, and then the experience of being on an airline is terrible. So the audience is alienated because they were expecting one thing and they get another. So that's where branding breaks down.
How early on in a business development should they start thinking about their brand?
It sort of depends on the sector. Some sectors are very brand conscious, very competitive, and you got to get in like right away with it. If you're able to grow your business in an organic way, and then get it to a point, a sort of a tipping point where you're looking at it, you've established your audience and you're looking at a different public or a broader public, you can look at branding there. You can do things about branding that are not formal. Any good business is branded by, usually small businesses are branded by the personality of their owner. So everybody knows, you know, I go to my car mechanic, I know I'll be talking to Frankie. And so they already have a brand in a way. The more formal kind of branding takes place usually when your business is mature. Of course, it doesn't apply if you have a product and you're attracting millions in venture capital, then you brand right away because you're playing in a different league.
Sometimes nonprofit organizations don't always think about their brand. What do you recommend for nonprofits in terms of branding and that process?
Well, I love nonprofits. They're some of my favorite clients. Nonprofits confuse their mission with their brand. They assume everyone understands their mission, and their mission automatically is going to attract donations. But in fact, a lot of nonprofits have similar missions. So they have the same branding problems as corporations. They need to embrace branding for the very same reasons, in that the difference between a nonprofit and a business is a business, what they do attracts money. With a nonprofit, what they do usually does not generate money. They have to raise money from donors or grant writing or whatever. But they have to connect the dots in the same way a business does. They compete. They need to project a clear sense of who they are and have an emotional connection with their audience. Both businesses and donors have an emotional response, and that's part of the branding, is the emotion. So all these organizations or businesses need to do the same thing.
So Peter, what is all this fuss about social networking and sites like Twitter and Facebook and MySpace, and how does that relate to branding in any way?
Actually, a lot of businesses are very alarmed by the whole social networking environment, and they're afraid they're going to lose control of their brand. And that's true, they will. What that means is your brand experience has to match up with what you're promising as a brand. Otherwise, you'll get savaged on social networks. Depending on your sector, some businesses have to be very aware of social networking now, some don't. But a good first step is to go to Google Alerts, which is a free service of Google, and have them type in your business name. That way, Google Alerts will tell you whenever you come up in a blog, discussion, website, whatever. So you can get a sense of how much you're being talked about. You're going to be talked about more as the whole social networking evolves. One interesting niche an example of a niche that has to pay attention to social networking right now are local businesses, local service businesses. And I'll give you a personal experience of this. We have a mouse in our house, so I was looking for a pest control company. Now, in the old days, I look in the yellow pages, I'd call around and try to get a sense of what's what. Instead, I went looking for reviews, and I came across a site called Park Slope Parents. And I was thinking, well, Park Slope Parents are really intense. So who would be better to have an opinion about a pest control service than Park Slope Parents, because I know what they're like. So if you were a local service business, I can guarantee you were being talked about by one of these sites. I think Fort Greene has one, Park Slope has one. As neighbors in Windsor Terrace, we'll probably have one sooner or later. So Emily's List. So that kind of business needs to jump in right away. Other businesses, just find out what's going on, and then find a limited way to engage it where it's not a time suck for your company. And eventually, you'll have to get in it more, but you can choose, and you don't have to do everything at once.
That's great advice, especially for Brooklyn businesses, because all business is local in Brooklyn. And thank you for these insights and for this wisdom, and look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, I'll see you soon.
Brooklyn Independent Television on the BCAT TV network.